The first time the room went silent, it wasn't because of anger or authority. It was because a small child's calm voice cut through a boardroom thick with fear, pride, and a $50 million mistake no one knew how to fix. In that moment, a single father who had spent years feeling invisible realized that everything he had struggled through had been quietly leading to this one breath holding second. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and hidden potential, pause for a moment and like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that miracles don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they walk in holding a child's hand. For years, Adam lived a life most people never noticed. He was the kind of man offices rarely remembered by name, the kind who blended into hallways and waiting rooms because he didn't demand attention. After his wife passed away suddenly, the world had narrowed to two things: survival and his daughter Lena. Every morning was a careful calculation of time and money. Every evening a quiet negotiation between exhaustion and love. He worked contract to contract as a logistics consultant, never secure, never certain, but always present for Lena. She learned early how to be patient, how to read his tired expressions, and how to turn small moments into joy. What Adam didn't fully understand, even after years of bedtime stories and whispered encouragement, was how deeply Lena listened. Look, she absorbed everything. The languages he played on old podcasts while cooking, the foreign cartoons she found online, the strangers they met in crowded buses and shared offices. While he worried about bills, she was building a world inside her mind, one where words became bridges instead of barriers. The day everything changed began like any other high-pressure corporate morning. Adam had been invited to assist in final negotiations between a global tech firm and an international investment group. The deal was massive, complicated, and fragile. Representatives from multiple countries had flown in, each bringing not just their expectations, but their cultural assumptions and unspoken pride. Adam knew his role was small. He was there to advise, to smooth logistics, to stay quiet unless asked. He also knew he had no childcare that day. Lena's school had closed unexpectedly, and canceling this meeting would mean losing future work. With a knot in his chest, he brought her along, hoping she would stay unnoticed in a corner with her coloring book. The boardroom itself felt like a battlefield disguised as elegance. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the space with light, but tension clung to every polished surface. Executives spoke in clipped tones, translators whispered urgently, and misunderstandings stacked on top of each other like unstable blocks. A single phrase mistranslated led to raised eyebrows. Another cultural nuance misled to offense. What had started as cautious optimism slowly unraveled into frustration. The CEO, a man known for closing impossible deals, felt control slipping through his fingers. Adam felt it too. His chest tightened as voices grew sharper and body language hardened. He could sense the deal collapsing, not because the numbers didn't work, but because trust was eroding by the second. Lena, sitting quietly beside him, looked up from her drawings. She wasn't bored. She was listening. As confusion deepened, translators struggled to keep up. Languages overlapped, pauses stretched, and irritation turned into silence. That was when Lena tugged gently at Adam's sleeve. Her face was calm, almost thoughtful, as if she were solving a puzzle rather than witnessing adults unravel. Adam leaned down, expecting a request for a snack or reassurance. Instead, he saw certainty in her eyes. Without raising her voice, Lena addressed the room, not in English, but in a language that immediately made one executive straighten in surprise. She switched seamlessly to another when a different representative reacted, then another, and another. Each sentence wasn't just translated. It was softened, clarified, reshaped with cultural understanding far beyond her years. She explained intentions, corrected misunderstandings, and restored respect where offense had taken root. The room froze not out of shock alone, but recognition. This wasn't a trick or a performance. This was connection. Adam stood there, stunned. He had known Lena was bright. He hadn't known she was extraordinary. As Lena continued, the atmosphere shifted. Tension eased, shoulders relaxed. The CEO watched closely, his initial disbelief turning into awe. In minutes, what teams of professionals had failed to repair was being rebuilt by a child who understood something they had forgotten, that people wanted to be heard, not just understood. When Lena finally stopped, the room remained silent again, but this time it was reverent. The deal resumed slower, clearer, guided by renewed trust. By the end of the meeting, agreements were signed, hands were shaken, and a $50 million partnership was saved from collapse. Adam felt dizzy, as if he had just watched his life pivot without warning. The aftermath was overwhelming. Executives praised Lena not as a novelty, but as a reminder of what empathy could achieve. The CEO approached Adam not with authority, but humility. He spoke about opportunities, about education, about support. For the first time in years, Adam didn't feel like he was barely holding things together. He felt seen, but the real transformation didn't happen in that room. It happened later, when Adam and Lena sat together in the quiet of their small apartment. The same walls that had witnessed late-night worries now held a different kind of silence, one filled with possibility. Adam realized that all his sacrifices, all the moments he thought were failures, had actually been lessons Lena carried forward in her own way. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were still challenges, adjustments, and fears, but doors opened that had never existed before. Lena received access to language programs and mentorship. Adam was offered a stable role within the company, not out of pity but respect. Their days gained structure, their nights gained peace, and their future gained shape. What stayed with Adam most was not the money or recognition, but the lesson that brilliance often grows quietly in overlooked spaces. That resilience can look like bedtime stories after long shifts. That children raised in love, even amid struggle, can change rooms full of powerful adults. If this story is touching your heart right now, take a second to engage with this video. Your likes, comments, and shares help stories of hope reach people who need them most. As time passed, Lena never saw herself as a hero. She continued learning, curious and kind, still holding her father's hand as they walked forward together. Adam continued reminding himself that worth isn't measured by titles or income, but by the impact you have when it matters most. Before this story ends, leave a comment below telling us what part moved you the most or who this story reminded you of. Your words might inspire someone silently watching, because sometimes the world doesn't need louder voices or bigger deals. Sometimes it just needs a child brave enough to speak, and a parent who never stopped believing, even when life felt impossibly heavy. As the weeks turned into months after that unforgettable day, Adam slowly began to understand that saving the deal was only the surface of what Lena had truly changed. The corporate world moved fast, but its ripples were deep. Word spread quietly at first, then insistently, about the child who had restored trust where millions of dollars had failed. Invitations arrived for cultural forums, educational panels, and private consultations, not to showcase Lena like a spectacle, but to learn from her presence. Adam shielded her carefully, choosing balance over fame, knowing how fragile childhood could be when exposed too early to adult expectations. At the company, Adam's role shifted from temporary consultant to a respected internal advisor. For the first time since his wife's death, he felt stability settle into his bones. He no longer woke each morning with the familiar fear of emails unanswered or contracts ending. Instead, he woke with quiet gratitude, packing Lena's lunch while sunlight filled the kitchen, realizing that the life he once begged to survive had slowly transformed into one worth dreaming in again. Yet success did not erase Adam's insecurities. There were nights when he sat alone after Lena slept, replaying every moment of the boardroom scene, wondering if he had missed signs earlier, questioning whether he had done enough as a father. He remembered the years of barely scraping by, of choosing between groceries and fuel, of apologizing for things he couldn't give her. But now he saw those years differently. They weren't empty or wasted. They were the soil where Lena's empathy, curiosity, and courage had grown. Lena herself remained unchanged in the ways that mattered most. She still laughed easily, still asked endless questions, still hugged her father with the same warmth every night. When people praised her abilities, she listened politely, then returned to her books and drawings. Languages to her were not achievements, they were stories. Each word carried a feeling, each phrase a piece of someone else's world. She learned not to impress, but to understand. That was the gift no boardroom could manufacture. One afternoon, Adam attended a quiet meeting with the CEO, expecting routine updates. Instead, he was shown the numbers, the long-term projections, the renewed investor confidence, the expansion made possible by that saved deal. $50 million had been the headline, but hundreds of jobs, families, and futures had followed. The CEO spoke honestly, admitting that years of success had almost made him forget the human side of business. A child had reminded him that leadership wasn't about dominance, but listening. Adam left that meeting with a weight on his chest, not pressure but responsibility, to carry that lesson forward. At home, Adam told Lena about the people whose lives had changed because of what she did. She listened quietly, then asked if they were happy. When he said yes, she smiled and returned to her homework. In that moment, Adam felt tears sting his eyes, not because of pride alone, but because he realized he had raised a child who measured success by peace, not praise. If this story has moved you so far, take a moment right now to like the video, share it with someone who believes in quiet strength, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this only travel when hearts carry them forward. Time continued its gentle march. Lena grew older, her world expanding, her understanding deepening. She faced challenges of her own, moments of self-doubt, the pressure of expectations, the confusion of growing up different. Adam stood beside her through all of it, reminding her that she didn't owe the world brilliance, only honesty. He taught her that being extraordinary was not a requirement, only being kind was. Years later, long after the headlines faded, Adam watched Lena walk confidently into a new chapter of her life, carrying not the weight of what she had done, but the wisdom of who she had become. He realized then that the real miracle was not her talent, but the resilience born from love shared in quiet rooms during difficult seasons without applause. If this story touched your heart, please engage with this video before it ends. Your support helps keep stories of hope alive for people who need them most. Before we close, leave a comment below and tell us what this story made you feel, or who it reminded you of. Your words matter more than you know. Because in a world obsessed with power and profit, sometimes the greatest transformation begins with a single parent doing their best and a child brave enough to speak with compassion. And when that happens, even the largest deals are no longer about money, but about humanity finding its way back to itself.